Thanks for your time. Ken Davis, Jeff. A couple of you obviously introduced yourself, both directors at Bates Smart. We're presenting 17 Spring Street, which is a apartment building for Seagrass property, 73 units, which we won in the design competition in 2017 from memory, might have been late 2016. Let's go down. Just like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners, the Wurundjeri and the Wurundjeri, and on whose country this project has been developed. We recognise the continuing connection to land, waters and culture. The project sits really at a really interesting junction of the whole grid. It is effectively the only part of the city where you really read the legibility of the structure of the city as a grid, finishing without becoming dissolving into the rest of South Melbourne, North Melbourne, West Melbourne. It's almost a precipice of built form that ends in Treasury Gardens and extending over to Fitzroy Gardens, which you can kind of see here. And it's dominated by Harry Sidler's One Spring Street, which turns the corner and actually starts a sort of process. The original building on the site was the old Cure Hotel, which you can see kind of stands out as a bit of a missing tooth in a way of a street wall that's dominated by buildings mostly built right to the boundary, effectively vertically. It's not a low condition, it's not a podium condition. We obviously responded to that pretty strongly, so this is kind of urban strategy where, you know, Harry's building turns the corner, it then terminates in a blade wall of polished concrete. I think we're really interested in the idea that all of the apartments would face the park, and so what that drives in a compliant building envelope is a building that gets really thin, it stretches to its width but actually pulls back from the rear, so it's actually a shallow building that stretches upwards to a tall form. But we were very interested in the idea that there wouldn't be a simple podium-tower relationship, but one that grades itself up, even starting at Harry's kind of sculptural car park vent that dominates the corner of that kind of curve of granite and begins to transition up to those taller elements, and also even acknowledging the sort of skyline of One Spring Street. So you can see the strategy. The building is actually very thin. The core is a third element. It's a sort of collection of bundles where the core sticks out the back, because in this case, we were prioritising the kind of amenity of the park by trying to bring the building forward. What that means is that almost all the apartments are dual aspect or triple aspect, effectively. There's only a few two beds in the centre of the floor plate at the lower levels, which face one direction. And from a sort of, I guess you'd say, an architectural point of view, we're very much interested in this idea of dissolving or working with this kind of vertical palazzo language of a single sculpture and getting away from the idea that towers would be defined by a 40-metre podium and average setbacks and different language. So as an urban proposition, it very much deals with the face. The architecture from a point of view of the rhythm is very much derived from a relationship to the other buildings on Spring Street. Obviously, the Uncle Freeman Treasury being incredibly significant, but also quite lovely in the proportion of concrete and the kind of beautiful structure and relationship of that, which you also have in the granite and polished concrete of One Spring, but you have kind of bronzes and other elements of it. We've interpreted that in a GRC façade. This is glass reinforced concrete. Obviously, given the slenderness and scale, it's a curtain. So the real challenge for us is how do you deal with mass and masonry and the feeling of solidity, and I guess it's the structure of building a building which feels like it has a wall, but windows are punched, not just exposed to glass, but do it in a way that's totally unitized. And so it's GRC. There's elements where you can kind of see this in the sketch, the sculptural relationship of the art, and even things like that sort of curved vent on Harry Sidler's building being translated into our expressive columns. And then the scaling, you can read the stepping that relates down. So starting with the heavy base of One Spring Street and terracing up as it goes up towards the other buildings on Spring Street, but reading it as a defined collection of bundles. You can see it here, it definitely has a podium. There's a scaling change between the width of the piers at the lower levels to the upper levels. There's obviously games played or rhythms of spacing from sort of 2-storey to 3-storey to 4-storey. And we worked very hard on the materiality, because when GRC it has some challenges. You can't put the aggregate into it because it is only about 20 mil thick. So those are 450 by 450 piers, but they're shells, concrete with glass reinforcement. What we managed to do was get 3 mil pieces of quartz into it, which were then polished. So it's almost like a terrazzo. And what that does is it gives it a kind of sheen that when you're there in person, it picks up the light qualities of the day. So it's very kind of And I think this photo, which I love, captures, there's the polished side of one spring. You can see the kind of stepping edge, the profile that changes the sharpness of the side of the building, and they are kind of more ordered sort of bays, but you kind of get the material qualities as well. These are the columns at the lower level, the idea of the distinct, heavier marking of entrance, but also that relationship to the kind of luminous qualities of the gardens. And there are two entrances. There's one on Spring Street itself, which is the one on the left, the grand portal, and then a more discreet one on Throssell Lane, which is a one-way lane that we've sort of designed to share on.
Yeah, just moving on to the interiors, clearly we've taken the theme of the exterior of the building brought through the two entrances that Kean mentioned, the white space of the primary residential arrival areas, the central one being the concierge volume, and on our corner condition, taking great advantage of the park view, is the residence lounge, which is active 24/7 rather than if you put a retail outlet there and gives it to the people who are living within it. So those two clear rectilinear volumes, classical ordering in line with classical ordering of the frames. A one-point perspective view from that porte-cochere, unique really for a residential building in the whole grid to have a porte-cochere. It's axial view straight through, and that one-point perspective almost continuous as part of a deliberately chosen tapestry that continues that line of sight, focusing right in onto the concierge. Light, bright and a warm but yet restrained and minimalist interior set against, I guess, the richly ornate tapestry. The use of the bronze from the outside and the creams stones from the exterior. And just to juxtaposition those fine elements, that minimalist interior carefully lit throughout by working with electrolyte. A glimpse through those strong high vertical portal frames to the full height vertical unique shot frontage that we applied to this living space, and really a very calm, distilled, timeless and classic interior. One classic artwork set against contemporary modern Australian ceramics. A view through to a sculpture by Paul Selwood, New South Wales sculptor, and that strong vertical line, the bronze and the neutral stone as per extension of palette from the exterior. On level 3, we have the residence amenities shown in the central zone in pink, dining areas, cellars, bookable meeting rooms and so forth. The two apartments in this instance on the park view with their external terraces, and to the western side over Harry Simon's Ring Courtyard is the residence terrace and outdoor barbecue area. The use of the residence lounge, very calm, sanctuary-like 25-metre swimming pool, again overlooking Simon's rear garden, deliberately distilled palette in keeping with the exterior of the building, and some of the fine detailing to create that timeless interior.